presenter, Daniel Shanahan, is going to be going over inventory management today. And one of the things I'd like everybody to do is, if you have any questions or comments, just go ahead and open up the chat window in Ring Central and enter all of that through chat. And what will happen is I'll be keeping an eye on that while Daniel's putting on the presentation, and I'll just go ahead and inform him if there are any comments or questions for him to address during it. That way we don't have sort of a lot of people talking during the presentation, and that Daniel's not having to be figuring out who's saying what, because that can be a little bit difficult, especially if we have you know, more than about 10 or so people on the meeting. For those of you who may not be aware, this past week, Claris released FileMaker Pro 19.1.3. It is not something that you can upgrade from within the application, at least not at the moment. So you're going to need to go ahead to the website, the Claris website, and download it. The link for that, I believe, is in the email that Taylor sent out. Is that correct, Taylor?
The link is, say that again, the link?
The link to download the update, or is that something that you need to get from your own?
Yeah, you have to download it from the downloads. It doesn't happen automatically. I thought you were talking about the link I posted in the chat. So, yeah,
No, not the Sliant one. I'm talking about the FileMaker 19.1.3. Is that something that we need to download from our own particular downloads page or license page, or is that something that FileMaker has and it's up?
FileMaker has it publicly, but it doesn't happen if you if you go up to the help and pull down to the update. Correct. It doesn't work. So you have to go to the download site.
Note there, Taylor, the update does pop up now.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yes, I've had a number of calls already on that this morning. And it occurred on me yesterday afternoon, so the update does come up if you have something other than the current version.
It sure is. Look at that. It just came up for me as well. Good call, Gerard. Thank you very much for that information.
Yeah, because I had a slight problem with my application, that the script wasn't exactly the way it should be, and it took me hours to figure it out, and I figured it out, and when it went from 19.1.2 to 19.1.3, I had a problem. I had to figure it out.
Gotcha. Okay. And one other thing that happened this week is FileMaker announced the 19.1.2, I believe, version of FileMaker Pro, which is the version that is going to be available for Linux or sent to us. And there is a presentation that FileMaker is putting on, or that Claris is putting on the 18th of this month. It is a GoToWebinar going over 19.1.2 and its new support of CentOS, and as well as some changes in performance, stability, and reliability, according to their press release. So if you need information on that, we can go ahead, and I think we might be able to go ahead and put that information into the chat before the end of the meeting. We'll see if we can pull that up. And I think that's all we have for this right now, at least as far as any announcements for the group. Taylor, am I missing anything?
No, not that I can think of offhand, other than start thinking about presentation things to come up in December is usually when they start asking for presentations for the next DevCon or Engage, whatever. And then, of course, December 4th is Michael Wallace is going to give us a presentation on FM Butler.
Yep. Right now, we have a December 4th with Michael Wallace, as Taylor said. We also have Andy Nazinski on January 8th to give us a presentation on the NRG shipping software. We have open slots in February, March, April, and May right now. So if anybody has any interest in putting on a presentation, or thinks that there are any presentations that would be a good fit for showing the Dallas FMPUG viewership, please reach out to Taylor or myself and let us know. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I mentioned earlier, as well as what I put in the chat. If you are joining us just now, make sure that you have the chat window open for the remainder of the presentation, and make sure that any questions or comments that you have, that instead of speaking them out, so that Daniel doesn't have to worry about who's saying it and who he's responding to, just go ahead and put any comments or questions into the chat, and I will be keeping an eye on that, and I will let Daniel know as those come up, and he'll address them at that time. Okay? So if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and hand everything over to Daniel Shanahan. Daniel, thank you for being here. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to talk about Trayse Inventory, which is a product that I've developed on the FileMaker platform. This is about me. I'm an FBA member. I'm a sole prop. I'm in Northwest Ohio. I've been doing FileMaker professionally since 2008, but since 2016, I wanted to change my business model, and I started to focus on inventory management. I have a website, and as a result of that, I created this website, FileMakerInventoryResources.com, and that has, I think, about 36 short articles on inventory management, and it has, I think, 13 demo files that you can download. I have a bunch of inventory videos on YouTube as well. I had a site called FMInventoryStarter.com, but that was some courses and a shell file, but that's no longer available. And really all of that has evolved into what I want to talk about today, and that's Trayse Inventory. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the software process. You guys know this already, but it just helps me move into, here's the software process, here's the inventory flow. There's an opportunity that I want to present to you with Trayse Inventory. I'll give a demo of that. At this point, let me say on the demo, as I'm talking through this, if you could, in the chat, if you could say, hey, I'm really interested in this aspect of inventory management. Maybe it's lots, maybe it's serial numbers, maybe it's multiple receipts against a purchase order, maybe it's multiple locations within a single warehouse, any of those things. Put those in the chat, and then I'll know to focus in. When I do a full demo of this to a potential client, it could take about an hour and a half or 2 hours. So we don't have that time. So if I know what to focus on, that'll be great. I've asked Will Mercer to join us. Will and Lizette have used Trayse Inventory for one of their customers, and I had an opportunity to see how Will modified it. I think it looks beautiful, and I'm really excited about how a developer can mold this framework into what they need for their client. And so I would ask Will to say a few words, and Lizette is here too. So if they want to say something, that'd be great. And then I have this thing for Q&A. But as Greg had mentioned, if you have questions, please ask those in the chat at any time. And Greg will interrupt me wherever I am, and I'm happy to address those questions as they go along. Oh yeah, and here's a what would you like to see? Okay, the software development process, this is nothing new to anybody. The point I want to make is that this is really concise, it's pretty, it's nice that we can show our clients. We'll probably show our clients this in the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting. Everybody's excited. And then this happens. So if you've been on a project, on a single project for more than, I don't know when it happens, maybe after week 3 you say, oh, this wasn't quite as quick, or I thought I knew what they were talking about before, but I guess I didn't know what they were talking about. 3-month projects can drag on, 4-month projects can drag on. So I say that a little bit facetiously, but I think everybody here has been involved in projects that have gone longer than expected. Here's what I want to say. I can help. And obviously I can help with the inventory system. But first, let's clarify what the inventory flow is. It's very, very simple. You have things that come into your place. You have things that move around your place. And you have things that go out of your place. You're purchasing things, you're putting things away, you're replenishing stock, you're replenishing picking bins. You're creating estimates, sales orders, pick lists, shipping documents. So things are moving in and out of your system. Here's that flow a little bit more flushed out. Yeah, start with empty shelves, you create a purchase order, you receive it, you put it away. You might put it away on a big shelf because you're not going to pick all of those items right at first. So you have a place where you put your pallets. Then you have a separate place for the same SKU for your pickers. Then you create an estimate, create a sales order, pick it, ship it, and you invoice it. It can get more complex than that. For example, things that come into your system are not only in a purchase order. It might be a return from a customer, it might be a transfer from another warehouse. If you're building things, this could be a manufacturing environment where you're doing a build with raw materials, work in progresses, and finished goods. Or it could be a distribution process where you're putting kits together, sometimes called bundles. Those all come into your system. There's ways that things can go out of your system besides a sales order. And it's the same thing. All the pieces that build up that kit or that finished good, you're transferring from a particular warehouse and you're making a return to the vendor. All the while, you really want to have some kind of log table that says, where did this SKU come from? When did we receive it? And where is it now? If you're starting from scratch, then all of this has to be built. And there's a lot of components to that. And I would remind you of what can happen with a long project like that. And so what I want to say is you could start with a framework. I can help with the framework, and Trayse inventory is that type of framework. I think it's a win-win-win because for the customer, you could solve that problem faster. It doesn't have to be a 3-month process where you're still building out the item table or the serial number table. All of that stuff is done. You as a developer would earn revenue through customizations because everything has to be customized in FileMaker. There's really no other reason to have FileMaker. And I am selling this as a subscription. Here's where Trayse is in the context. There's certainly enterprise software, which is flexible. So you could do customization there, but it's time consuming, it's expensive, high risk, complicated. You could do a SaaS inventory. There's some really nice SaaS inventory solutions. And when I talk to customers for the first time, when I talk to potential customers who might have heard about Trayse or somehow they found me on Google, I do ask them, have you looked at Fishbowl? Have you looked at Unleashed? Have you looked at any of these things? If they say no, I might say that might be a good place to start before you come to me, because they're much more simple. They're inexpensive. They're relatively inexpensive. Now you can't do any customizations in them, but they're quicker. They'll be quicker than any customized solution you get. Trayse fits right in the middle. This is not uncommon. You could really create this slide with almost anything if you were building a CRM or an education management system. This is nothing new, I think, to seasoned FileMaker developers. I think what's new is that the options on the right have multiplied. Okay, so that's the quick slideshow on the demo. Greg, is there anything that people wanted to mention that they wanted to see in particular?
Mass balance is what Taylor put in there.
Mass balance. I will. Taylor, can you tell me a little bit more? I'm presuming that you want to say, what are my quantities across all warehouses?
Well, I was just chuckling as you were talking about what comes in, what moves around, what goes out is basically just scientifically what we call mass balance. But anyway, it's amazing how we can mess that up real easily too.
Yes, yeah, I'm not familiar with that term. Let me start by so this is Trayse, and let me start by the menu here, where there are things that come in. I'll start down here. There's things that come in, so it comes a purchase order, receipt, and a put away. There's things that go out with the estimate order, sales order, pick, and a ship, and then an invoice. It does generate an invoice. There's movements inside here. There are transactions. We could build things with assembly orders. Assembly orders is simple. It's not rudimentary, but it's simple because, in my experience, manufacturers, even people who kit, there's a million ways to do these, and so I haven't put in any business rules here. So it's somewhat simple. And then you can replenish shelves if you, like I had mentioned before, if you have pallets full of boxes, and then you have a separate place for the same SKU for your pickers. And can track lots. You can also track serial numbers, and then of course company and return orders and that sort of thing. Okay, so let's move on to an actual item here. So this is the inventory or the item layout. There's lots of things that you can track for your products, and I decided not to put them all on the layout. A lot of them are hidden up here. So there's things like we can have documents for all the layouts. We can have substitutions. So substitutions are great when you have a stock out of a particular item. We'll take a look at this in the sales order. So if you're in a sales order scenario and you have a stock out of a particular item, you can say, we don't have that, but we do have this other item. This is all dummy data, by the way. I always have to remember that, to tell people that. Upsell items, just like when you're on Amazon or really any website now that says, if you like this, you may also like that. Again, in a sales order scenario. Vendors, one of the strengths of Trayse inventory is we could track, Trayse inventory tracks multiple vendors for a single SKU. And in that, it can track the vendor's item code, which you notice is different. In this example, the vendor's item code is different than what our SKU is, or our item code. We can track what the minimum quantity is that the vendor requires from us. We can define what that minimum quantity is. In other words, there's a conversion that goes on, and that's important because I don't know, I think probably things would be more standardized than this, but I highlight this because I want to highlight the flexibility of Trayse, that if we're that two different vendors have a two different conversion rate on what a case is, that's not a problem for Trayse. What that cost is, what the unit cost is, what the suggested manufacturer retail price is, lead time. And you can have as many of these as you want. So, and then we have a preferred vendor over here, and that changes some of the data over here depending on who's listed as a preferred vendor. Quantities is another big thing for Trayse. In quantities, well, let me stop by saying up here are the total quantities, and we're keeping at least 5 quantity fields. On hand is what is in our environment. Allocated is what has been promised on a sales order. Available, it's not just a sales order too, it could be an assembly order, but available is what you can sell. So available is really on hand minus allocated. On order is what is on order from the vendor, and on back order is a stock out. What has a customer purchased on a sales order, but we can't fulfill? And I could see all of those numbers across all of our warehouses. In this case, I have 2 warehouses, one in Durango and one in Sylvania. And inside those, I can see where this SKU is at any given place. Shipping and receiving, I can see where it is. I might have, let's go down here to Sylvania warehouse. I might have a separate picking location and a separate put away location, particularly if I have to buy from my supplier in large quantities. Could have a shipping door, a receiving door. This is flexible. You could put anything you want in here. And the idea is that you can manage all of your numbers, all of your quantities. You would know exactly where all your inventory is at any given time. The only exception that I don't have in this, but you could build in, is if you had something like a lift truck where you're moving it from one part of the warehouse to another part of the warehouse. So as you're transporting it inside the warehouse, there's nothing in here that does that, but you easily could have a lift truck as a location. It's just a movable location. Then we have some tallies up here. So there's 3 of these units in Durango, and there's 65 in Sylvania. And where are those 65? 13 are at this location and 52 are at this location. And all of that together equals my 68. So Trayse goes really in depth into your quantity. So if you ever have a customer who says, I just don't know where my inventory is, this is the golden nugget right here. We'll take a look at a transaction table, but just for the moment, it's good to know that there's a history of any time. Now this doesn't have any movements, but anytime this SKU moves from any of that inventory flow that I mentioned earlier, from purchasing, purchase order, receiving, put away, all of those get a line item in the transaction table. It's called history here, but it's the transaction table. Can track serial numbers and lots. I'll go over that in a little bit. Some very simple KPIs. This would be another place that I would expect a customer would want to have customized. Here are all a place where you can manage all those locations. Let's see, you can have seasonality in Trayse. So if you have a product that is in demand, let's say you're selling snow shovels, you might not want to keep the same quantity of snow shovels. I should know my audience here. I'm talking to the Dallas-Fort Worth user group. So, and sorry, I'm in Northwest Ohio and winter is coming soon. But you get the idea. If it's Christmas cards, for example, it could be anything that's seasonal. If it's candy, it might be a Halloween or an Easter time. So you might not want your same maximum and minimum quantities here. And so this value is derived from this, and you have great flexibility. Now, I had one customer who said everything they have, they don't need seasonality. It was very, very simple to change these 2 fields to say, don't update, just hide this piece and make that a editable field. That's real simple. Safety stock, I'll skip for a moment. I have barcodes. So there's barcodes in here. This is a web viewer, and you can, you can make adjustments to the barcode. There's not too much I want to say about the barcode. It really is, it was developed by another person. It's a JavaScript library that I incorporated in here, and and I included the information there. But the big thing that you should know is that it's in a web viewer. So depending on what you're printing with, you may want to use it in a container. You may want to take that value and put it in a container. That's a little bit beyond what I have right now, but know that it does include barcodes. This particular item is a raw material. And so again, it's all dummy data. So I have this assembly section at the bottom. I can't put, it's impossible for raw material to have a bill of materials by definition, but it can be used somewhere. And if it is, I could click this, and this would give me a list of where this SKU exists in some other bill of materials. And we'll go over some of that as well. Let me, so I want to go to a couple of items here. Any questions as I'm talking through all this?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry if I'm a little bit late. I was delayed getting here. Actually, two questions. One is a real quick one, and that is there any connection with General Ledger in terms of inventory valuation?
That's a great question. There is, no, the short answer is no.
Okay.
The longer answer is I did a video, I have some files and I did a video series on that topic. There are really 7 ways. I don't want to go too deep into this, but there are 7 ways that you can gather your inventory value, your estimated inventory value. And those are the LIFO, FIFO, and weighted average, sometimes it's called. But you could do those periodically, or you could do them perpetually. And then the 7th one is with the serial number, where you know exactly what came in and what sold.
Right.
And I have a file. I did a whole video series on this where I break it out into a spreadsheet, and then I turn that spreadsheet into a FileMaker file. And it is something that can be incorporated. Here's another, it's a great question, because in my mind, one of the things I think about is the add-on tables, the brand new add-on tables. So in the future, what I'd love to be able to do is have these, well, at least those 6 options available as an add-on, because you never know how a business is going to do their item evaluation. If it's going to be, it's probably going to be FIFO. It may be, but it might be weighted average as well. And you don't know if it's going to be perpetual or periodic.
The reason I'm asking that question along with the next one is my curiosity about this goes back to my career in manufacturing about 35 years ago, where I learned the hard way that unless you have your inventory valued and accurately counted, you really don't know if you made any money. Because that's the golden door to that kind of knowledge. The other question I have is a little more on the odd side. I was in the business of manufacturing ballpoint pens, and about 30% of our business, people bought them in assorted colors. And it was always a challenge to know what the inventory quantity was of assorted colors. We eventually, after years, gave up, and we made the assortment when we produced each order by just grabbing a few from each batch of color. But whenever I dealt with anybody who was doing any kind of inventory management in a computer, they couldn't comprehend assorted colors. I used to go to the grocery store and buy a bag of M&Ms and put them on the table to show them that get M&Ms, you don't care how many red or how many green, you just know that they're assorted. A better example might have been Planters nuts, because they sell cashews alone and they sell walnuts alone, but they also sell mixed nuts. And all that the customer cares about is to get a mixture, but keeping track of your inventory of those things was a challenge.
Right.
I guess that also gets into, combining and breaking apart items.
Right.
An item is
your forklift example was relevant on that, because that's kind of what we do. You move things from one place to another. We tried for a while making work orders so that we would create a work order to make the assortment by deducting a quantity of red and blue and green and yellow and so on. And then all of a sudden we had a quantity of assorted as an internal exchange.
That's right. And that's where I was thinking about that in Trayse with the assembly order. You certainly could do it. The randomness means that every time you created a box of assorted pens, somebody has to count those.
Right.
Because if you don't count them, then your inventory is going to be, there's no way, you'd have to do a manual adjustment.
My grandmother had the best answer for this. When I was about 10 years old, she told me that when a customer complained that there weren't enough colors in the assortment, because these were always for advertising, they were given away. Her answer was, who cares? You're only giving away one. The person doesn't know what else is in the box.
Any other, well, I hope I addressed that okay.
Yeah,
if
thank you,
yep,
Daniel.
you're welcome. Are there any other thoughts or conversations or comments we want to have at this point? I would go over, yep.
I should also add, I'm in Denver, so I appreciate the snow shovel concept.
Oh, right. Yeah, you might appreciate the Durango warehouse example too.
This is Taylor. I had a question about the barcodes and using a web viewer. Does that result in a lower resolution print issue, or does that kind of get taken care of anyway?
You know, I don't know. I haven't printed them, I haven't tested them. I haven't had anybody who has purchased, I've only have a handful of people who've purchased the system. And frankly, no, I don't think anybody's using barcode readers yet. So it's there. It would probably require some development work, which would be good news for a developer.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'll move along unless there's other things that people want to talk about. But here I have an example of a serialized item. And so in my serialized item, I can track each of these unique serial codes for this item, and I can keep data on it and when it comes in, when it's been allocated, when it gets referenced out. And there's a different barcode for this. So I just want to stress the fact that there's a barcode reader for the item itself and then a separate barcode reader for this. So if you adjusted the settings here, that would not affect the barcode reader for the item itself. And then let's take a look now at transactions. So on that particular item that I had just talked about, that was a widget. So here's in the transaction, we have a list of all the movements for that widget. And we could see it, we have a log, a timestamp log of every single SKU when it moves. And we track what the movement is, if it's in or out, and what the warehouse is and the location, the quantity, and the reference. And when I click on this first item in the warehouse, this is so I did all these, again, testing data. So at 11:05 a.m., there's not much to see. All I know is that I ordered 10. I have a quantity here of 10. These are the same quantity fields that I showed earlier. Here's what do I want to call that? You can tell what they are up here. Legend. Here's a legend up here. And I think I have a tooltip up here too. So right now what you can see is there's 10 for the quantity, and those 10 are on order. And if I go down to the last one, now I have the whole story of this. I could see that I ordered 10, then I received at this location, and again, all of my quantities are 10. Now I don't have to receive the same number, which would be an interesting thing to show too, is that you could receive you could receive an order multiple times against a single purchase order. Anyways, when this comes in, it's no longer on order. It now is on hand, and they were serial numbers. So when those serial numbers came on hand, here are the serial codes. Now, practically speaking, that has to get in the database somehow. And I would presume that could be a barcode, or that could be a bill of lading or shipping document, or maybe a CSV that the supplier sends you. Just moving along, then those get put away. After receiving those, get put away to um, excuse me, to where they're going to be in the put away spot, or I'm sorry, this looks like the picking spot. It was a put away action. And now those are available. Again, those same SKUs. Now I also track lots. So in that corner where previously it said serial numbers, that's because that item held a serial code. But if I receive a lot, in other words, the product that I received maybe has an expiration date and was built in a batch, I could receive that as well. And then there are, we could just take a look at the purchase orders. Now we have a list of purchase orders. This is somewhat interesting. We have, two right here. They've both been received. And I have a status up here that you can't click on these. This is just to let the user know what status this is. This is also repeated here. And I have this document that I can, and I can have a paper document with it. And again, a receipt history if I receive this in multiple receipts. We'll have some time to try that. I can't do anything with this line. I could view this line, but I can't change it because it's already been received. So it's been locked down. But I can print something here. So if I wanted a document, that's always available. Let's create a sales order. I want to create a sales order with those serial numbers, and I forgot where they are. So I'm going to come back here to the serial number. And in my quantity, okay, I put them in the Sylvania warehouse. Let's see. So I'll pick a warehouse, and I have some dates I can fill out too. Now I want to add an item. So I'll do that serial widget. I'll add that. I also want to put that AMOX. And here you see that on the AMOX, I have a couple of options. I have substitute items and I have upsell items. Now it turns out that I have 65 available. This is a slightly different way of populating a portal. And I chose this way because I wanted to give the user more information. I wanted to let the user know how many units are at that particular warehouse. This is no longer the total units, but remember we selected a warehouse for that sales order, and how many are on order. I also know that if I don't have any, I could do a substitute. Here are all the substitute options I have for AMOX. Now, I'm gonna, I have a button down here. I don't know, my screen resolution is higher so you could see this. So that's a little bit off screen. I also have an upsell button. Now it looks like I don't have any, I haven't assigned any upsell items to the AMOX, but I'll choose the AMOX. Now you remember, oh, this didn't quite work. Oh, I see something's wrong. You guys wouldn't know this maybe, but I need to order in multiples of 30 for the AMOX. Oh no, that's not true. Sorry, I'm getting confused with my purchase order. That would be good to see. Let me say 5 here. And let me close out of that. I want to do something real quick. I should have done that. I should have started with a purchase order. Let me just do a quick purchase order. And I think it was Dabless that, Dabless is my preferred vendor. Let me create an order here. That's not really what I wanted to do. Let me delete that. Mostly I want a dab list in there. Warehouse, I'll put Sylvania, Amox. Here what I wanted to show is that because I select, and this is the purchase order side, because I selected an item that has a minimum purchase, I need to clarify how many I'm expecting to receive. So in this case, now right now there aren't any checks and balances. So, you know, if I put 12 in here, it'll accept that. And that might be okay because of business rules, because if you can get a broken case. But for the time being, I'll put 25. And so that's the piece I wanted to let you know, is that that when you have that, otherwise you just get this regular message. Let me do one more thing. When we print that to the vendor, this comes up with the vendor code that's most prominent. So the vendor is going to see their item code and they're going to see their order of unit. They're not going to see ours. Ours are on there, but not as prominent. Okay, so I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I want to head back to that sales order that we created. And feel free to interrupt with any questions or put them in the chat as Greg had asked. Once I'm here in this state, I'm in a new state and I can click on these buttons and now I can delete it or I can edit it. So if I want to change a price or quantity or anything like that, and change that to 3. And this one, I know that I have a serial number and I could put those serial numbers in if I know it. Let's see, I think I'll just choose these top 3. Again, this is a business rule decision. You might want to have your pickers make that decision and put that in during the picking process. I could also add a discount at the line level, or I could add a discount at on the header level. Sometimes I get questions about taxes. There's no tax table. So again, another thing that a developer would have to implement would be a tax table. All of that is going to depend on if your customer sells internationally or just nationally or just locally. And as everybody here knows, I'm sure tax codes vary greatly around the United States. I'm going to push that forward. So now I have this pick document. I can navigate to that pick. I could have started from an estimate order. I started from a sales order. You don't need a sales order, or you don't need an estimate order, but you can have one. And if I had one, that would show up here. But I'm going to move forward and I see that this is now in progress. So I'll come over to the pick and oh, my documents didn't show up, or my line items didn't show up. Well, that's not fun. Okay. Yeah, that kind of kills that. This is one of those embarrassing moments where, you know, I'm showing something and there's a bug.
The demo gods strike again.
They have, yeah. So since we're all developers here, and since I put on some pretty good antiperspirant, let's see if I can figure out what happened. Now I have some custom menus here. I have to get out of that. So I'm going to come here and this will give you also, while I try and see where those are, I think I'm not sure if the lines were not created or if they didn't get the header ID, but it gives you, as I do that, it does give you an idea about how I've organized things too, which may or may not be of interest. I suspect it might be for developers. Pick line, the way that I develop is I have user interface layouts and I have developer layouts. And so when I'm running scripts in the background, they're almost always running on these developer layouts. These are empty layouts. Sometimes I need to see data, so I'll have an analysis table. And that's what I want to see here. So,
Right.
So there was an issue where my line didn't create. And that's a bigger issue than I'm going to fix right now. Let's see, I can easily go back here. So my 2 lines didn't create when I press that sales order. So let's see if the transaction created. The transaction created. So I sold my widget and I sold my AMOX. That's helpful for me because, let's see, I think I had a button here. Yeah, that's helpful for me. Why didn't it? I'll have to debug that after this session. From here, let me just say from here, it would normally get picked and get posted. The posting is the reason you need to post it so it gets put onto the transaction. And after the pick, it gets shipped. The shipping is, I don't have anything in the shipping, but let me open up the shipping document too. So here's what the shipping looks like. And this does not, so this has some very simple shipping where you would have the line items and the header items, but what it doesn't have, it's not connected to NRG, for example, or it's not connected to Shippo. So that would be another piece where the developer would need to go in and say to the customer, where are you shipping? What are your methods? And do we need to integrate some other software with that? Same thing with invoices. So you can create a simple invoice here. You can create a simple invoice and send the invoice, but as it is out of the box, Trayse Inventory doesn't connect with an accounting system. Presumably they're using, most people I run across are using QuickBooks, but it's not clear if they would be using QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks for Windows. And then Sage would be the other one I've run into as well. So those would be other development points that require customization. So I'm sorry about the sales order thing. That's really a bummer that that part doesn't show. But now let's go back to our purchase order. Let's see if we can bring that in. We have these two. Let's run through that process. Lease this to the vendor, we saw that. So this moves forward. Then we'll receive that document. I'll go to that document and I'm going to import all of those items that I received. Oh man, don't tell me. That is, I would tell you I was working on this morning and I thought, okay, I got everything tightened up, which, you know, are famous last words. Oh, I wonder, so the receiving. So my lines aren't coming in. All right. That's a big bug. I apologize for that. That puts a damper on everything. What else, people? What else can I show you? Transactions we've gone over. Here are my transactions. That works. Yeah, that's a bit of a drag. We can manage documents in here. And documents can be related to company item, lot number, order, receipt, shipping. And I took this offline, so the documents are not showing up. All right, so let me stop the screen share so I could see faces and have a conversation. Clearly not the way I wanted this to go, but this might be a good opportunity for me to have Will Mercer save me from this, from the demo gods, because Will and Lizette have done an implementation of this. So Will, can you say a little bit about how that experience was? And if you if you can show us what you did with it, because I think it looks really nice.
Sure. We have a client who sells heavy equipment. So his inventory, while the numbers are small, and any piece can be a ton, literally. So they were looking for something to manage their inventory. We reached out to Daniel and got started on this. And just off the top, it saved us. I mean, we were able to go straight to customization. We didn't have to build any of the foundations required to manage this inventory. So that was a huge, huge gain for us. I'm going to share my screen and show you what we've done with the tool. So let me go to items, since that's what we were looking at. So we've done a couple of things. We've implemented or integrated master detail. This client, we have multiple applications for this client. There are several businesses. So one of the requirements from this client was to be as parallel as possible to the way things sort of look and function in the other tools that we've created for them in the other businesses, because his finance folks and some of his inventory folks, they wear a different hat in each of those businesses. So in addition to adding master detail to most of these layouts, we also took several of the items that lived in this more menu and have blown those out over here, because that matches with the way things look and function in the tools that the team are already used to and accustomed to. It was very quick to retheme the starter solution, which was lovely. This client also is I mean, down to the pixel directive and what he wants things to look like, where he wants them to be, and what color that they need to be. But being able to accommodate that was very simple by adapting the theme. So this morning I ran what is probably our next to last data migration. So we are very close to being able to have all of their data, which exists in all kinds of spreadsheets, migrated into the tool. One of the other things that we did is we still have our Trayse inventory splash screen, but I converted the home screen to a dashboard view. So right now this is showing year-to-date open estimates, year-to-date partially received POs, as well as we've done some things here with notes, and I'll explain where that's coming from. I got mock-ups this morning for a sales dashboard, which is yet to be developed, but so we kind of converted this home screen into a dashboard. The notes, they wanted the ability to be able to make some notes really tasks or action items that get pushed to that dashboard. And so again, the original company detail layout, we added master detail. We moved some of the items in the more menu down here, one or two fewer clicks to get where they wanted to go. Added some history stuff in here. There's not a lot of history because just this morning I ran a fresh migration. So it didn't occur to me until after I ran it that, oh yeah, I wanted to demo this today. So there's not a whole lot of data in here. but the line items are working, so we're getting line items. So hopefully, Daniel, that was something you did this morning that you'll figure out about
Yeah.
5 minutes after we hang up the phone today.
Right.
So yeah, that's essentially what we've done. And again, I think the biggest win for us is, for us and for the client, for us in terms of resource allocation, we didn't have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours, or weeks and weeks even, developing the data structure and all of that. We were able to
go out now.
We were able to just take that and go immediately to the customization.
Ow.
Speaking of customizations, this client has some unique situations with heavy equipment taxes and off-road taxes. So we've started the process of integrating that into the system. He sells worldwide, and so we're going to be having to deal with all of that. So that's another place where we're able to, just start with the taxes and run, as opposed to having to build everything from scratch.
Hey, Will.
Yes, sir.
We have a question. Gerard wants to know if you have any graphs coming for your dashboard.
Yes, we do. I asked that I got a request for several, that I put them on hold until we get all of the data in and know exactly where we're going. So yes, we will be implementing pie charts, bar graphs. Yes, we will be doing that.
This is Taylor. Which tax system are you, which accounting system are you connecting this with?
Right now, this isn't directly connected to the accounting system. And that's something that's true across all of his businesses and tools. So there will be customized reports that will be generated that then go out to that. So that is a conversation that will happen, but we're not currently connected directly to an accounting system.
FYI, threw over in the comment section there, I've got if anybody does need, wants to do sales tax tied with shipping stuff, there is Avalara has a free API, and I've got a free template for it that will, based on address, give you the tax and breakdown by county, utility district, state, whatever, based on any given address, that you can pull right into FileMaker with JSON. And then if you're into that tax stuff,
Lisette, I don't know, do you know the name of, do you know which one we're using?
Yeah, let me look. Because we had somebody else integrate.
We've got a contractor that we've been working with for a while, and it's already set up. I just haven't tied into it because I had to get us through my data migration first, but that way we can at least share who we're using. Yeah,
I'm scrolling back through Slack to find where I'm just not getting the right channel yet.
Any other questions or?
And I do also know that they use QuickBooks. We just haven't integrated anything with it at this point, because we just did a DocuSign integration for one of the other solutions. It's not high on the list of priorities at this point. So, but it has been discussed. Let's see. I bet we have it in this channel.
I know. Let me take a look at Slack real quick. Eric may have sent it directly to me.
I've done some LedgerLink integrations with inventory.
ZipTax.
Okay.
And
I know that it is a subscription. It's not free, but it was very inexpensive.
Yeah, and it was really quick for him to get it integrated. I mean, it didn't take any time at all. It's taking us longer to get all these other rules about heavy equipment tax rules are convoluted. So it's taking us longer to get some of that support in than this part will. It'll be easy.
And we'll be doing some customizations around dealer pricing and user pricing. So there's that's another place where we'll have to customize a little bit based on the status of the company that we're selling to.
Right. Pricing is always a challenge, because there's the your suggested price, then there's we're going to give a discount price, or there's going to be a discount price for everything for this time period, or there's going to pricing matrix tables can be as complicated as you could ever imagine.
Yes, yes, yes. But what's been nice about using this tool from Daniel has been the normal frustration that may have built in getting to this point, we got to skip, and we can really focus on the customizations that more rapidly meet what our customer is looking for. So it's been a very positive experience for us. And I have to say, and Daniel did not ask me to say this, he has been available whenever we've had questions. He and I have had a couple of phone calls. The support that we've received has been wonderful. So that's been a great experience for us as well.
Nice.
And I'll reiterate, the client's happy with the cost, because the cost of the template is still less than the cost of what it would have taken for us to get there in that template, and the speed with which we could have something going, because his folks have been begging for this for a while. And he's got multiple companies, so just us trying to keep up with each of them and keep everything going, there's no way we would be looking at having something ready to roll out before the end of the year if we were doing it all us. Also, and part of what the way we found this was because of your web resources on the inventory management, because we sat down to start at, I was like, well, it's been more than 10 years since I've had to do inventory in FileMaker. So completely different tools at our disposal 10, 12 years ago than now. And just went looking for, all right, has somebody else already done this? So we are not rethinking every single little decision about how we should set this up. And we were just starting at the data structure point at that. And so we found all those reasons. So we were going through them. I was like, oh, that's something we didn't think about. We need to ask about. And it started out as a way to ask the client, okay, does this apply to you? Does that apply to you? We had thought of things like returns, but there were some other things in there we had not considered, and or back orders. We had thought back orders, not returns, I think was what it was. And so we started out that list, and then we saw the link to the template, and we're like, oh, well, that would just be, that would, if he'll go for it, that's way less. And this client is very happy with starting with templates from somewhere else. I think his original database started as a seed code template. So
that's always the challenge as a developer. We all know that we can do this, but we also know it would take a lot of time. And if there's a template already out there that can be done in a lot less time than it would take us to do or to build a client, it only makes sense to use the template instead of, just because you can do it doesn't mean it's the smart thing for you to do, at least in terms of your client.
Right.
Yeah. And it's well organized. I mean, it may not be the way we would have named or organized things in every instance, but we can figure it out and follow along.
The key thing for me is it's consistent. So it's different than the way I've done it before, but I look at it and I can recognize very quickly the way things are organized and set up, relationship graph, field naming conventions, etc. So extremely consistent, which is not always the case.
Good job, Daniel.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
right.
thanks.
I'm going to turn it back to you.
Yeah, well, I want to thank Will and Lizette for adding that. Those are nice comments. I appreciate that. Is there anything, any questions people have? So again, my pitch is that this could be used if you're getting requests for inventory systems. I would like you to consider this as a template. And are there any questions about what it can do, or behind the scene things, or conventions, or anything at all?
I'm assuming this is in the FileMaker Marketplace, right?
This one is in the FileMaker Marketplace. That's right.
Does Trayse have any particular meeting, like tracing where something is going or something?
Trayse, yeah, Trayse does have a meaning. It's because of that transaction table. So the transaction table means when I would talk to people, when I would talk to potential customers, the thing that came up over and over and over again was traceability. Everybody wanted traceability. And so I took the word and I gave it a slightly different spelling, which sometimes happens with apps. And so I threw a Y in there and a YS in there.
Creative. There we go.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions for Daniel?
Does he have any security built in that's part of the template, or is that all just customized? In other words,
There's no security in the terms of what we would think for users. There's no security set up for that. So you would have to customize that. Again, that's something I found that it's hard to clarify what a particular business would want. Having said that, I mean, you don't know what the user groups are. Who a manager is at one place is not who a manager is at a different place, and what they should see or shouldn't see. But having said that, there is security in the sense that when a purchase order goes through a certain status, then you can no longer edit the line items of that purchase order, or you can no longer edit the header items of that order. And I think we've all run into situations like that where we build something. If you don't run a business and you're just a developer doing the developer business, you think, here's an invoice and I just created it and here are all the fields you need. But then the business person says, yeah, but I don't want my people to change it after I've sent the invoice, or I only want Gloria to change it if the customer calls Gloria to say it needs to be changed. So there are some of those lockdown fields after it's been a certain status.
have you looked at integrating any web developers connecting to the API for, doing anything, the data API or anything with it?
I have not done that yet, but when I have these sales conversations with potential customers, I have that in the back. It's not even in the back of my mind, but I say, are you using, now most of the people I talk with aren't on Salesforce. I think Salesforce is mostly enterprise, but I'll say, are you using Pipedrive? Are you using Zoho for CRM? What are you using for CRM? Because they all have APIs, and I have not connected to them, but I know it can be done. Lots of people, that's a relative term. It's not infrequent for somebody to say they have an e-commerce store and they connect and they use WooCommerce.
Right.
Now, I haven't done that work, but I know there's that plugin by the guy in Australia or New Zealand. You guys probably know who I'm talking about. There's a WooCommerce plugin, by Andrew Duncan.
Oh yes, New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. Yeah, and I've had some emails with him. Very nice. Again, he's very accessible, and so I have one customer now who's on WooCommerce, and when the time comes, it's just a real easy handoff to say, well, he will do that. I have somebody who's looking at shipping, and when that time comes, I have somebody who's going to integrate the NRG. That's a real easy handoff.
Okay. Anybody else? I don't have anything else in the chat right now. So is there anything you wanted to talk about to wrap up there, Daniel?
That's all I have. I have enjoyed the opportunity. Obviously, I wish my line items worked, but I'll take a look at that. In a way, it's kind of nice because I'm in a room full of developers, and I mean, what better way to hit a snag than a room full of developers?
We can relate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forgiving crowd.
Yeah. Everybody is say, yep, I've been there. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those afterwards. If you want to email me at daniel@newleafdata.com.
Okay.
You want to tell us about the pricing structure, just so that we have an idea to tell our clients if they're interested?
Sure. Let me do the pricing structure here. Let me go to that, and I'll do a screen share again. So, so the pricing is slightly different than what Will and Lizette came in on. There was a time when I was selling this at a one-off price, and several people bought that at that price. It has since changed to a subscription model. And so here's the subscription model that I'm offering, starting at $48 per user per month. And then I also have additional fees. And some of these things would then be, you know, I wouldn't receive these fees if I'm not doing this work. If this was your client and you were doing this work, then you would receive this fee. You would might even have different fees for that. But this is how I have it. Just if a manufacturing is coming to me. So I have, and then another fee if you want the file open. If the file's not open, then essentially it means I'm the only one who can do the development on it. Here's the integrations that are possible. And then I do these customizations with prepaid blocks.
Thank you.
All right.
Sure.
Well, we have in the email that went out earlier this week, we have a link to New Leaf Data. If anybody's interested in pulling up any of the information that Daniel just showed us. And I'd like to thank you again, Daniel, for coming in. And I'd also like to thank Will and Lizette for joining you. Really appreciate all the comments and the insights. And appreciate you guys taking the time for our little users group this week.
Yeah, thank you.
One last chance for everybody, if anybody has any questions, but if not, we'll go ahead and just do some final comments. I am going to go ahead and throw into the chat right now the links to the Claris, the demo, the webinar that's going on the 18th of November for FileMaker Server 1912. There are two different sessions, and I'm going to put in the links for both of them. First one is the earlier one, which I believe is at 5 p.m. Central, and the other one is at 6 p.m. Central, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it looks like it's 5 p.m. Okay. So I threw both of those in there. Hopefully, it doesn't look like it's reading them necessarily as a link, but there's two of them. So the second one you're going to want to go ahead and pull if you want the second time, and the first one pull separately.
First one's a morning session, Greg.
Is it?
Yeah, see how it says 8
Oh, it's 8 a.m. You're right. It says CET. I was reading that as CT. You are correct. So it is 10 a.m. There's a 10 a.m. session, and this is Central Time, of course, being that we are a Dallas user group. There's a 10 a.m. session and a 6 p.m. session. So the 10 a.m. is the first one, 6 p.m. is the second one. Thank you for that, Mr. Know-it-all.
It was my mistake. It'll never happen again.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add for the group as a whole? If not, we'll go ahead and close out this week's or this month's session of the Dallas FMPUG users group. Looking forward to seeing everybody this time next month, and everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.